Welcome to another preview episode of Banditland Boulevard. We're previewing week 20, I believe, already. Oh, we're kind of like losing track here. Week 21, something like that.
Yeah.
Between the Buffalo Bandits and the Toronto Rock, the battle for first place is going to be a huge game for the Bandits. I'm joined by Tony LaMonica, aka Boxhead 98 TL, and we got a guest, a Bandits Mafia. We see him all the time. We see him all the time in Bandits Mafia. Super fan. We got our boy Dan Dudziak. How's it going, Dan?
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me.
So we're just here to preview this huge matchup at the Keybank Center, but we know what's at stake. We know winner takes all, winner takes first place. They have a game in hand over us with a 13-4 record. We have a 12-4 record with 2 games left to go. We got Toronto and Albany coming up, but Toronto this weekend, let's at least hope to wipe the sour taste out of our mouth from last time we played those guys. I mean, we both can agree that that game was very, very ugly, the 18-7 shellacking of the Bandits. But this time it's going to be at home. I think that Toronto has all the pressure on them right now to maintain that first place spot. But either way, no matter the outcome of this game, both of these teams will host a playoff game. But it would be cool to see the Bandits get some of that sweet revenge going into the playoffs.
Well, basically, all you got to do, guys, is go and play to make a stand. You're at home. You're playing against a rival. This is no longer a regular season game. It is playoff lacrosse time now. This is what it's meant to be. Is this what we're going to see in the playoff picture in the brackets? It could happen like last year did before Buffalo moved on to face off against Colorado. But this is the determining point of where Buffalo needs to step up like they did last game to win and get that winning edge back. And this is going to be a big, important game, not only for the Bandits, but the Rock as well.
Definitely.
I agree with both of you guys. I think this is absolutely a statement game. Obviously, rolling into the playoffs, but also from a couple weeks ago, just completely rinsing that taste out of our mouths. For 100%, get the offense going. The defense, the goaltending has been stout. I think this is make or break right here.
It is make or break, absolutely. I mean, the offense has been the question mark over the past month or so. I mean, we saw it last week in that overtime win. That was the most goals that they've scored since February 18th in their overtime victory against the Wings, which is very, very hard to believe. So we're seeing the offense starting to trend in the right direction, but this is a perfect game to start picking it up, right? I mean, this is the game you're facing against probably your arch rival since before the Rochester expansion. I would say Toronto has taken over as that arch nemesis now. But if you have the ability to go in there and just send the full firing squad there with Josh Byrne, Dane Smith, Chase Frazier. We don't know the status of Tehoka Nanticoke yet as of Thursday night while we're recording this. But if we can get firing on all cylinders, take shots with above 15 seconds to go on the shot clock, make the goalie stand on his toes the whole time. We almost got into trouble with that a little bit against the Riptide, but we ended up rebounding and coming back and winning that game. But if you fire on all cylinders, get at least 55 shots on net, some of those goals are going to go in. I mean, Nick Rose, he's had history against the Bandits, some good games and some really, really bad games where he's letting goals over the shoulder through the 5-hole. But we just need to attack the net, shoot the ball, get that offensive confidence back with 2 weeks to go here in the season.
Basically, what the Bandits have to do is play their last year's kind of theory, is how they were gun-ho, gas on the foot on the pedal, and just go on Nick Rose. You got to go after him low. That's his weak spot. For us, we already know how Vino is. It's either 5-hole or over the left shoulder.
It's over the shoulder Vince, baby. Yep, all day.
Right.
Yep.
We have to protect our goaltender more, and defensively, we have to be smarter. You cannot let their offense get a groove because Schreiber, Small, and Rogers will eat us alive big time if we do not slow down the powerhouse line that they have. Now, meaning after that, the defense has to buckle down now that we have Justin Robinson back. Is he the answer? We don't know.
Thank God.
Even with Adam Bomberry, too. Like, he was a healthy scratch last week. I don't know if that was a great idea, but he also brings that toughness that we might have to have him on the roster this coming Saturday to help our defense get that push.
And Dan, Tony mentions
I also think.
Yeah. Go for it.
Go for it, Danny.
No, I also think that the secondary scores for Buffalo need to step up too, because Toronto's defense is so stout that, again, after the conference finals after last year, their main focal point is going to be the Burns and the Smiths. And all that other stuff. Guys like Kyle Buchanan, I think, truth be told, I think he's going to have a monster game. He gets into the dirty areas. I hear you guys say it all the time. He's by far the smallest player on the field, but he has probably one of, if not the biggest hearts, because he gets into the dirty areas, and just watching him just be a part of a scrum for 10, 15 seconds, and then somehow his little body comes out with the ball, and then it's a reset or whatever. I think guys like him really need to step up. Also, they have proven that they can light Nick Rose up, because game one of the conference finals last year, the final score, we put up 18 goals. So there should be, I mean, again, that putting that couple weeks ago game out of your mind, knowing full well what your team is capable of, I think there shouldn't be any issues.
And I was going to say, maybe you actually remember that game. Remember why you're pissed off at them. I think this is going to be one of those like bittersweet losses, the humbling loss that the Bandits suffered against the Rock. It looked awful on the score sheet, and it was horrible watching that on TSN. I stuck around. I know the Sabres were on that night too, and I was kind of flipping back and forth, but I pretty much stayed and watched the whole game, because I was like, I wonder how the Bandits are going to respond other than getting into a fight at the end of the game. Let's see how they respond against the Toronto Rock this time. We know it's going to be physical. And what's actually a little bit scary to me about this game is we lost that game 18-7 without Mitch DeSnew and without Dan Dawson in the lineup. And they were really struggling without those two guys, that defense. And then that game against the Bandits was when the defense really gained their confidence back. So that was very humbling for the team. But most likely they're going to be coming back. But now we have Justin Robinson back. And I think when you have those two guys out there, like Dawson and DeSnew, why don't we, I mean, Dan, I was going to ask you this, but I think this is a game that maybe we should start Nathaniel Kozevnikov.
I agree. He's a different look kind of guy, and obviously we know him and we love him, right? And I've heard Tony and both you too, Trevor. He has a rocket of a shot, and he's a different look kind of guy, right? Like that's all you can really say. You don't see too much about him. I mean, obviously from a lack of playing time, right? And again, their defense, no matter who's in the lineup for the Rock on the defensive side of the ball, their main focus is going to be on Dane. He's going to be on Josh, simply because that's Buffalo's bread and butter. Not to take it away from anybody else, but they know for certain that those two guys can absolutely burn them, no pun intended.
And they have in the past multiple times.
100%. So I think Nathaniel might be a good addition, provided there's not something behind the scenes like an injury or something, something going on, right? Healthy scratches are one thing, but you tweak something in warmups like Frazier did, a couple weeks ago or whatever. But I think that might be something to investigate further if you're Johnny T, figuring out what your lineups are going to be before the game. So.
Like, obviously, like you said with Nathaniel, he's like the under the radar kind of guy to go to, like in case we need him. But the other thing too is, like you mentioned, Trevor, that without DeSnew and without Dawson, the confidence level of like what Danny said about their secondary defenders coming in and taking the roles like they need to, kind of like how we were mid-season, is that when we had the injury bug, everybody else stepped up. Brad McCauley stepped up in scoring. Ian McKay came and became like the go-to.
Dalton Solver,
Dalton Solver with his toughness, and also we had Sam LaRue. But also with Nathaniel Koznikov playing only 3 games so far this year, and he's got 3 points to prove it. But the other thing is, let him come in.
And a beautiful sidearm shot. Yep, beautiful Steinhaus type of shot.
They haven't seen him really play. And I guarantee you, those are the ones that are going to be like, let him go. He ain't going to do, oh, wait, he just scored. That's the kind of mentality we got to send Toronto.
I mean, the first goal he scored was the most Mark Steinhaus, and I keep saying this, was the most Mark Steinhaus goal I've ever seen in my life. Off his back foot, sidearm, goes top shelf. I mean, that's
surprised everybody.
Yeah.
Surprised us all.
It's very hard to prepare somebody when you have 1 game's worth of film, right?
Yeah.
And you can say whatever you want. If you're from Toronto, you can say he's got a good shot. You can try and take it away. But if you give him even the slightest bit of space, before you know it, the ball's going to be behind you.
We've had some of our underrated guys burn Toronto in the past too. I mean, if you go back to the 2019 NLL East Division Finals, Kevin Brunell was burning that team, and I think they were just sending their guys to guys like Evans at the time, Smith, and Byrne. That was it. They had no answer for Durston, if you remember him. They had no answer.
Dirty Durston.
No answer for Frazier that game. They had no answer for KB. I mean, what Toronto likes to do is they like to shut down your top guys, but they tend, especially against the Bandits. I don't know about like against any other teams, but they they shut down those circled players that they have on the roster. And then they let your Chase Frazier's or Chris Kluche's or some of your defenders that can shoot really light the lamp. And unless you're talking about last year's conference finals when everyone contributed and won that game 18-17. And then even game 2 was a big score fest as well. And it was a crazy ending in that game and going to the finals. But we've proven time and time again that in clutch games, we know how to beat the Toronto Rock. I think this is a clutch game, and like what Tony said, I'm going to treat this like a playoff game, because if you don't get hot at this point in the season, how far are you really going to go in the playoffs? The Bandits' performance in the clutch against Toronto is, I mean, completely amazing most of the time.
You preached that for weeks about how if you cannot get hot right now, just consider yourself a first round exit.
Yep,
and
that's right.
Not to compare apples to oranges or anything like that, because these two teams are in two different positions. But look at Georgia. They started the season 0-7.
God, yeah.
I mean, and they're one of those teams where everyone's contributing. Brett Dobson's finally coming into his own, not to make it about them, but it's just the point being they are white hot right now. And truth be told, even if we finish in the 1 spot, I'm going to be, darn scared if we have to see Georgia in the first round if they finish in the 4th spot. Simply because of that.
Colorado this year and Colorado last year. I mean, these guys are getting hot at the right time. That's a team that's like, teams should be circling out west right now. Teams like Calgary and teams like San Diego should be circling those guys, because when they get hot at the right time, it is tough to stop them. And it's in today's NLL, right? I mean, Rochester had that dynasty back in the 2010s, and it really didn't matter if they were limping into the playoffs or not. They always knew that they were a lock for the finals. Now it's about momentum. If you can carry this in, you can make a long push. And this is exactly what we did in 2016. Like, we were considered that team with the high-powered offense, but not a lot of defense and inconsistent goaltending. But we went to the finals that year. We shocked a lot of people. Went to the finals that year, and we just couldn't get it done. 2019 and 2022, I find both of those years, like, the Bandits did get hot, but I think they got inside their own heads. This year is completely different, or it should be looked at completely different, because they had to overcome this thing called adversity, dealing with the injury bug for most of the season, still continuing to win games, beating these top teams. Like, that Rochester game at home sticks with me all the time. Like, we were out our top 2 guys pretty much, and then Dane Smith was basically shut down by Rochester. But then you had guys like McCulley, and you had guys like Solver lighting the lamp, and Ian McKay. That was probably one of the most impressive games I've ever been to, impressive wins of the season. The Bandits have overcome a lot this year, and the last thing I want is just to have that season whittle away because of because if they limp into the playoffs or not. But thank God they have Albany next week, and thank God they have a huge game against Toronto this week where they can steer that ship.
Yeah, basically what we're going to have to do is keep doing what we're doing. We went from going full throttle to now being conservative, and conservative is what is saving our energy for the second half. Most of this whole season, it's basically been, okay, let's read what they're going to do first. If they're going to continue this kind of gameplay for the second half, we know what to expect, and we know how to change it, and we know when the timing is right to score the goals. And that's what they've been doing. They've been conserving their energy, and finally that third quarter comes around, and we get that unbelievable push for scoring. Average about 6 to 7 goals per
At
quarter
least.
after that on the third quarter of the season. So that's going to be huge when it comes down to the momentum shift going into the playoffs.
The only thing is, you got to hold Toronto under 7 in the first quarter. That was unacceptable last time.
You mean first half?
No, remember the first quarter? We were down 7-1.
That I didn't see it. That's the one game I didn't want to see, and thank God I didn't.
Well, good.
Because I would have been screaming.
You didn't miss much. Again, going down 7-0.
No, you missed a lot of crap. I mean, I was this close from turning. I've never really turned off a Bandits game before watching it, but that was my only exception right there. It was all bad.
I said the same thing, and I write. I write for them, right? I write for In Lacrosse We Trust, and I write the game recaps, and I'm in the post-game pressers for the home games and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, I can't. It was like it wanted to gouge my eyes out. It was unbearable.
No,
can't do it. Can't do it again. Can't do it.
Some games are just like that, unfortunately.
There is a silver lining to that. I think the Bandits will look at that game and look at it as motivation. Hopefully they didn't completely throw it out. Hopefully it's in the back of their minds. Like, it's still kind of there. They still remember it. They still have that lingering sour taste in their mouth. And they know when they come in that building, you guys know it's going to be a physical game. I mean, this rivalry sparked a ton after last year's Tucker out game when the whole controversy happened when they wouldn't shake our hands and stuff like that, and Bandit fans were booing them off the floor. We knew
That's
that
okay.
sparked the rivalry a ton. And then throw on top of that an Eastern Conference final, and then an 18-7 win, and then I think earlier in the season the Bandits took them down 12-10. It's been back and forth, but that's what makes rivalries great.
Yeah, especially with how you got top scoring versus top scoring, defense versus defense, good goaltender versus great goaltender. It doesn't matter how you look at it as. This is no longer a regular season game to them.
It's crunch time.
Playoff mode. It is time to see who's going to be the better team. I don't care if we have to go to a fifth overtime and win it to beat them, but as long as we get that win on Saturday, I'll be 10,000 times happier.
And a win is first place. A win equals first place. Yeah. Look at that. Think about that the whole time. A win. If you win this game, we don't care how ugly it is. If you win this game, you're in first place and you clinch that. That's it.
Third meeting this year. Might as well make it a good one. Might as well win at home.
I agree wholeheartedly.
I think it's going to be a big game, but the Keybank Center is going to be popping off. I mean, I know the Bisons have that season or have that ticket package where you buy tickets to the 1 o'clock game, and then the Bandits actually got the 8 o'clock flex, which I thought was pretty cool. And that's going to be on ESPNU. I unfortunately cannot make it to the game, but it's going to be fan appreciation night, and it's also going to be live on ESPNU. So if anyone if you're in the Buffalo area and you're available, unlike me, buy your tickets, go to the Keybank Center and watch that game. If you can't, and you have a TV around you, it's going to be on ESPNU, which is going to be a cool site because I think the last time the NLL broadcast on that was the championship.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Remember that. That's just so horrible.
Yeah,
I don't even want to know.
You know what? If the Bandits need any more motivation, I don't know if I want them to pull a New York Yankees and look at highlights of 2004 or anything, but I'm not saying that, but I'm saying just remember what happened in 2022. Remember what happened 2 weeks ago. You don't have to watch the video like the Yankees did in the playoffs, but just remember what happened. And if you still have that sour taste in their mouth, that means that you still care. You're not apathetic, and you're gonna win this game. You're gonna win in Albany. Take that momentum in the playoffs, and let's see how far we go.
Yeah, basically the guys. Who do you think who's going to be the players to watch? We might as well just get into the next segment. So, Danny, I'm going to start with you. For Toronto's sake, who do you slow down? Who do you stop on their side?
It's got to be Schreiber. It absolutely has to be. He had a monster game a couple weeks ago. Are you going to hold him to 0? No, I put him in the same category as I did Jeff Teat last week. You limit his production, right? That's at the end of the day, that's all you can do. You have somebody match him. You have somebody in his back pocket all game and then just hope maybe he has an off night, or you just shut him down and get in his head and frustrate him. And every time he's got the ball, you hit him, or, whatever the case might be. You're not going to hold him to 0 in the goal column. I will take that to the grave. But I think Schreiber has to be the person, like you guys say all the time, that you're circling on the scorecard.
That's your LaDainian Tomlinson, Derrick Henry. You're not going to hold him to under 20 yards, but if you can hold him to under 100, that's all we ask. That's all we ask right there. Thank God Rob Hellier's out of the organization. He would have been my player to watch because that dude used to dominate against us all the time.
Such a cancer.
But I'm gonna be basic here. I'm gonna go with Corey Small. I mean, he had the game of his career a couple weeks ago against the Bandits. And he almost scored a sock trick or something like that. He scored 5.
Yep.
So he scored 5 out of the 7 amount of goals we scored, which is insane. More than half the goals that we scored the entire game, he scored in a quarter or so. So he's definitely going to be my player to watch because, when you have Schreiber and Small, especially on the power play, which also brings up the fact that we cannot take stupid penalties, which we'll probably get into it a little bit, but it's got to be Corey Small for me. That dude cannot have a career game against us again.
Well, for me, guys, I got to say their goaltender, Nick Rose, if you can't get inside the man's head, he is going to stomp you like he did a couple weeks ago, especially with that 18-7 and making him look like the greatest goaltender out there and making Vince look like they're, and that's what we cannot do, especially at home at the Keybank Center. So, guys, you have to get inside Nick Rose's head. I mean, get in his face, never let him see a shot, and get the shots low to his feet. He will never go down. He is a goaltender that is just stand-up goaltending, and you have to score low. If the only way you're going to beat him, it's either one-timer pretty or low to the feet. End of story.
And I have just 2 things to say after that, Tony.
Yes.
no penalties or no stupid penalties. Because, well, we know the refs are going to be stupid sometimes. So
oh God,
we gotta,
let's not get to that real quick.
We got to get around them. Number 2,
that's horrible.
God forbid we are down by 6 when we're not even at the half like last time. Please don't put Devlin Shanahan in the game. I mean, that just solidified that Toronto win right there. You thought Vince was bad that night. Goodness gracious. We were still in the second quarter down by 6. We still could have had the opportunity to come back and win that game. Maybe it was 7-3 at the time, I think, because we were starting to get a little rally going. And then Shanahan, I mean, it was just bad right there. So if you're still in contention, it's not the third or not in the fourth quarter, keep your starter in. And, I mean, if Don Granato can keep Eric Comrie in against the Stars to give up 10 goals, keep Matt Vince in the game first half, right?
At that point, just let it burn. Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's some other keys to the game here too. For me, from some of the notes that I was taking in my head watching the game from section 315 against the Riptide is stop waiting until 5 seconds or less to shoot the ball on the shot clock. That was what ruined our. I'm being serious. I mean, that was why we lost game 3. That was why we lost game 3 of the finals. You got to take shots from all different angles. Take smart shots too. If the shot isn't there, don't take a sidearm that wouldn't hit the corner panel of the boards and you don't have to turn it over. But if you have a wide open shot, find some of your underrated guys. And by underrated guys, I mean guys that can tiptoe around the crease. Like Dan said, Kyle Buchanan is the fastest player on that team. That dude knows how to tiptoe around the crease, dip and dunk, do the Luke Wiles type of stuff in goal and score goals. Give the ball to some of your underrated guys, and because you know there's going to be 2 guys on Dane, 2 guys on Josh. And no matter if we like it or not, they're going to take a shot from just inside the restraining line. It's about getting those rebounds. It's about killing clock if you have the lead. And it's just about just overpowering Nick Rose.
Yep. Then I also think sorry, Tony, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead, buddy. You were going.
No, I think also Ian McKay, who I have been just a huge supporter of as well, especially in the New York game. I think he might be somebody to watch too, as far as the offensive side of the ball for Buffalo is concerned. You know, that goal against New York, he found himself doing jumping jacks on the crease because he slid behind the defense and sick move and go forward. So I think that also with him and the Buchanan and then the McCulleys and things like that, I think those 3 are going to be huge. I really do.
Key player to watch for me too.
Yeah. So go ahead, Trev.
Yep, that's his 3. My key player to watch in this game was someone who really got dominated last time, and hopefully he has a revelation is Max Adler in the faceoff circle. We need that Fogo position to be lights out this week. If you just get 45 to 50%, maybe just over 40, I'll live with that. Because, I mean, we were just getting outworked. Every facet of the game, we were just out-hustled, outworked, out-motivated. And Max Adler knows his competition. He knows who he's going up against. And another player to watch, just because we mentioned physicality before, Billy Hostrauser as well. We know that guy will love to, I don't want to say instigate, but get under the skin of the Bandits just a little bit so they can draw a penalty. He did that a couple of times. Yeah, Brad Cree. Oh, don't even get me started. But, I mean, Billy
I knew I was going to mention that name, and then it's like, that's it. That's all I had to say is Brad Cree.
Remember Hostrauser? I mean, they were giving out his bobblehead that night. They win 18-7, and he's drawing all the penalties. He's the one who talks, and then the refs get the retaliator every time, and then he never goes. If he runs his mouth, make sure that you're not instigating. And if you guys want to go one-on-one for 5 minutes each, go to the box. Okay, fine. Settle the score right there. But don't get a retaliator penalty. If you're going to get your Steve Priolos, Brad McCulley's out there to drop the gloves, make sure it's coincidental penalties for 5 minutes each and we don't go down a man.
Well, basically, guys, that you have named a few players of our team, so I'm going to go with 2, and that's only 2. 95 Chase Fraser, because of the fact he hasn't played against Toronto, I don't think this year at all. If you may,
no, he got hurt in San Diego and missed the Toronto game. Yeah.
So there you go. So he hasn't played against Toronto this year, and we all know and love how Chase loves to get under the skin of other teams, and this would be like our kind of throwback to them. And Chase could do that because all it takes is just his smile, just to get him going. And believe me, folks,
or when he's doing one of these, Yep.
And I guarantee you,
he washed his hands last week.
Oh yeah, he was washing his hands last week when he scored.
He will be happy to draw penalties, and then also, and through the grapevine, Tahoka may see a game here coming this Saturday too as well. And if that's the case, I hate to say this because he's been always pushing himself to the middle of the field, right in front of the goalie and getting his ass kicked literally every single time. But if he draws a penalty there and then, that's also a key play too. If we can get them on the penalty kill and us on the power play more, that's going to help you win this game Saturday.
That would require the officials using brain power. That's something that they really don't have when they're in Banditland. They lose. It seems like when they get there, they lose a couple brain cells walking through that tunnel. But I mean, at least on our side, we don't get any calls. But that's another thing. Drawing penalties, we have to get those calls. And we're also praying for B-Rob too. I mean, Brandon Robinson, that's a big piece we're missing right there. Big screen guy in front of the net. I always compare him to a guy like Thomas Vanek, who screens the goalie just at the top of the crease in front of the net, picks up the loose change and gets rebounds in front. He's a big, tough guy too. That's a guy who I hope gets healthy as the playoffs go on, because I think we win in the quarterfinals. If we're most likely facing against Rochester, we do have a good shot against them, especially if it's at home. I love to see a return of Brandon Robinson.
So, well, basically, if we do get Brandon Robinson back, but also we are in a segment, I believe now, gentlemen, that we can do our score predictions for this game. So
yeah, because Zoom's about to throw us out in 6.5 minutes. So
there you go. So we're going to say, Danny, what do you think is going to happen this Saturday?
Buffalo wins. It's going to be convincing. Completely washing any memory of weeks ago. Might be wishful thinking on mine, and I'm sure your guys' parts as well.
I hope so.
15-9 Buffalo.
Oh, my God.
Right.
If they win 15-9, that'd be awesome. You look at those offensive numbers. They score 15 goals. They hold the Rock, one of the most powerful teams, to under 10. I think that's your best case scenario, and you get first place. That's huge. I think it's going to be one of those bite your nails games again, and it's going to be like the Riptide game, back and forth. Hopefully the Bandits take a lead through the first 4 quarters of this one, don't have to just take the lead in overtime and walk it off, but I'm going to say that the Bandits get a revelation going, get their offense going. They win this game 13-12 overtime, and I think the OT winner, I'll give it to a guy with a great goal song, Chase Frazier.
Oh, all right. We got 15-9 from Danny. We got 13-12 from Trevor. Me personally, I'm going to go with your theory, Trev. It is going to be one of those trap games.
Trap
I'm
games.
going to tell you right now, because of the way how I see things is the way with Toronto being so hot, we're just starting to come back out of the picture with the winning ways again. But again, it's going to come down to where it's going to buckle down who's going to be the tougher team and who'll be the better team. So with that being said, being at home, Bandits, obviously, we're going to win. It's going to be 15-12 regular season.
15-12. I love that too.
Regulation. That's what I meant. Not regular season. Regulation time. That's what I meant to say. 15-12.
In all of our scenarios, we do have the Bandits taking the first overall seed. Could be a good thing. Could be very, very high pressure situation. But no matter what happens in this game, I think it's all about what the Bandits do the following week too. Because no matter what we have a clinched home quarterfinals game right now. So we already have that locked up. It just depends on who we face against and what we look like going in. That's like the only thing. We already clinched our spot. And I think the entire Western Conference is clinched too, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're all set
all
there.
4 spots.
All 4 spots. I think the 4th place spot in the East is still up for grabs between Philly and I think Georgia. And we don't even know where Rochester is. Halifax and Rochester.
Halifax is still in too.
Rochester's been falling backwards too. So if we can really jump on that, because that's probably who our opponent's going to be in the quarterfinals, or most likely. I'm open to any sort of change whatsoever, but oh God, I don't really want to see Halifax or Georgia now that you mentioned that. Oh my God, especially in the quarterfinals
no matter
game.
What, it's going to be an outstanding playoff bracket this year. I'll tell you that right now.
But I mean, this game is huge. This game's big. But whoever's going, just go there, have a good time. If you're going to the Bison's game first, I think they're facing against Iowa or something like that. Facing against the Cubs farm team. If you're going to that game, have fun. But if you're going to the Bandits game after, have more fun. Be loud. I think Chris Swanson's going to be electric on Saturday night. That's going to be great. And if you can't go and you have a TV around, you turn on ESPNU for a great matchup. Hopefully a competitive one throughout the whole 4 quarters, unlike last time.
Yep, and we also like to thank our sponsor, Mitchell's Tavern, also at 734 Sheridan Drive up in Tonawanda. If you guys want to go check out the best beef and wick on town, mention the boys here in Banditland Boulevard. That is Trevor Hauer and myself, Tony LaMonica, a.k.a. Boxset 98TL, saying you want the best food and great service, go to Mitchell's Tavern in Sheridan Drive in Tonawanda, New York.
And big thanks to Dan for coming on, man. I hope we can get you on more often. And I know everyone in Bandits Mafia, we always see you posting in there. We always read your stuff. It's great. And I think a lot of people in Bandits Mafia appreciate what you do. And I think they'd like to have you come back on as well later in the future. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. And yeah, after, stay tuned for after the Toronto game. Obviously, I'll definitely throw my recap in there, hopefully. And I'm sure we're all on the same page that it's going to be a winning article for sure. But again, Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
That'd be great. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, buddy.
Yep, and no problem, boys.
We also like to take this time and opportunity to say, if you have been watching us on YouTube, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell.
It's somewhere down here.
On Banditland Boulevard, right down here on the screen.
Somewhere down there. Yeah.
Also, we want to thank those who listen in on every device possible: computer, phone, radio, on Spotify.fm and Anchor as well, and give us that 5-star rating. We'd love to have more guests on the show, and we'd like to again thank Dan Dudziak for joining us here on Banditland Boulevard. I guess we can all say those 3 magic words in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Let's
Bandits.
go.
Bandits.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Freaking go.